The high-stakes talks between the U.S. and Iran are now underway in Oman. And if they don't make a deal, it could mean a U.S. strike.
Well, meanwhile, there are signs that Iranian leadership believes its time is running out. Joshua Swanson brings us the story from Jerusalem.
U.S. officials arrived at the negotiation site following the arrival of Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. The talks come after a round of negotiations that at one point envisioned broader regional participation in Turkey, before sharp disagreements forced a temporary cancellation on Wednesday. According to reports citing Iranian and Arab officials, Tehran ultimately agreed to return to the table after, as one source put it, everyone had given an inch. While the negotiations are still centered on Iran's nuclear program, there are reports that Tehran has now agreed to discuss its ballistic missile arsenal and its support for proxy terror groups like Hezbollah. U.S. negotiators are pressing Iran on its regional network, which includes forces in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, where Houthi attacks have disrupted global shipping lanes. Israeli officials are watching the talks closely, and they estimate there is little chance the two sides will reach an agreement. Ahead of the negotiations, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convened an emergency meeting of Israel's security cabinet. Speaking at the National Prayer Breakfast in Washington, President Donald Trump framed the talks as the result of U.S. military pressure.
Ask Iran. They're negotiating now. They don't want us to hit them. You know, we have a big fleet going over to Iran.
Meanwhile, Iran has continued its saber-rattling. Iranian media claimed the regime has deployed missiles in their underground facilities, boasting it could reach Israel in 10 minutes. The Iranian military spokesman warned that a conflict would encompass the entire geography of the region, describing Iranian plans for missile barrages and cyber attacks against the United States and its allies. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told lawmakers the Iranian leadership appears to be signaling a lack of confidence, saying top officials are already moving money out of the country in anticipation of what may come next.
The good news, Senator, is that we have seen, and we can see it with our fencing, we have seen the Iranian leadership wiring money out of the country like crazy. So the rats are leaving the ship, and that is a good sign that they know the end may be near.
As Iran and the United States pursue high-stakes diplomacy abroad, political tensions in Israel remain centered on unanswered questions from the Hamas sneak attacks on October 7th. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has submitted his formal response to the state's investigation into the failures surrounding the terror attack. He released the 55-page document and blamed Israel's high court for an unusually timed intervention that halted the review of what happened. The move highlights how the fallout from October 7th continues to shape Israel's political and security debate. But for now, the focus is on Iran and whether or not the talks will lead to an agreement, or if more warfare is still to come. Joshua Swanson, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, for more on this story, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief, Chris Mitchell, joins us now from Jerusalem. So, Chris, what's the reaction in Israel that the Iranian regime could actually fall?
Well, I think right now here in Israel, Gordon, many see a little chance that the deal is actually going to go through, that negotiations will succeed. I think Netanyahu told the members of the Knesset Foreign Affairs Committee just before he went into that security meeting, he didn't know what Trump will ultimately decide. And so Trump is talking because they don't want, and he's saying because they don't want the U.S. attack. Now, could the regime fall? What could be happening right now, Gordon, is a buildup of conditions toward a critical mass that could bring about the fall of the regime, and that could include the financial pressure. The Secretary of Treasury also said in that committee meeting on Capitol Hill that in recent months, he's actually led a financial strategy that's aimed at creating a shortage of dollars in Iran. What that has done is caused a bank collapse in Iran, a drop in the value of the currency. Now there's 1.6 million reals to $1. There could be a naval blockade. That's one option for President Trump on the oil industry. And so all these could be part of a critical mass that could lead to the regime falling. But regardless of whether the regime falls or not, Gordon, we're at a pivotal moment regarding the future of the Middle East. Either direction is going to have a profound impact on the region if these negotiations succeed or if they fail. And of course, the people of Iran, their fate rests in the balance. Why praying for Iran is so crucial right now.
Well, if there is a strike, if the U.S. strikes Iran, what's the expectation in Israel? Will they be now a target for ballistic missiles? And if they do, how is this different from what happened last year?
Well, I think that Israel expects immediately there would be some sort of Iranian attack, just like they did last year. The IDF says they're preparing defensively, offensively. In that security cabinet meeting last night, Gordon, Netanyahu said if Iran attacks, they'll face what he said was, quote, a powerful response. Israel undoubtedly has a target list. You may remember in the last June in that 12-day war, they were on their way, and President Trump actually stopped Israel from attacking one more time. So undoubtedly, they have a target list that they could hit. Could this be a repeat from last year in June when Iran attacked and 2 other Iranian attacks? I think people are expecting the same. And one thing that may be different, just a day or so ago, Iran unveiled a new hypersonic missile. That's probably likely to send a missile to Israel, that they still have capabilities. This carries a warhead of about 1.5 tons, accurate to about 30 meters. And the question is, Gordon, will it be able to penetrate Israel's anti-missile defense? Probably not, like they did. It was almost 90% last June. Tragically, though, they did penetrate some. They were destroyed buildings, killed nearly 30 Israelis. We were at some of those sites last year. So Israel is ready for an attack, Gordon, as soon as if the U.S. attacks.
Well, is there anything that you think the West is missing about Iranian posturing or the negotiation? Is there anything that we're not recognizing here?
I think so, Gordon, and I think we've talked about it before. The U.S. is dealing with a religious regime where theology is paramount to them. We're not dealing with a typical Western government. The regime has spent decades exporting the Shiite brand of Islam. They are preparing the way for the Mahdi, their Islamic Messiah, where they can foment chaos in the world, prepare his coming. And that's one thing. I think the other thing, Gordon, is that this is not a summer fair in Iowa. This is a Middle East bazaar. The Iranians are masters at negotiating, delaying, and stalling. So that's another thing, perhaps, that many may not realize as they go into negotiations. On the other hand, we do know that President Trump only has so much patience, and he's proven that last year. If they go too long, he may just sort of pull the plug on the negotiations and, if necessary, use a military attack on Iran.
What's the significance of the capital outflows that individuals within the government are sending their personal money overseas? The Treasury Secretary noting that in that hearing yesterday. How significant is that? Are we going to see a mass exodus of the leadership?
Well, they certainly could represent a crack, Gordon, not only financially. We've also heard in recent weeks that some of the families of high-level Iranian officials have either gone to Moscow and sort of, as the secretary put it, rats fleeing the ship. So I think that represents a crack. I think the main thing would be a major crack is if the IRGC or the army, the military, show any signs of turning against the regime and siding with the protesters. That could be a major sign that the Iranian regime could fall, implode from the inside.
Well, let's turn to Israel and the sort of political fallout from this October 7th report. Is that going to be a problem for Netanyahu?
Certainly a political challenge, Gordon, and that's why he came out. He said he spoke to the Knesset Foreign Affairs Committee, and he says many in the committee were astonished at his accounts, which were the opposite of what's been reported in the media for the last couple of years. I think most Israelis support the way he's led Israel during the war, but some do blame him for October 7th. To his defense, you know, many in the government had been dealing with Hamas in Gaza for years, and they sort of were buying quiet by allowing Qatar and other funding to go into Gaza. And then the intelligence assessment was that Hamas wasn't preparing for an all-out invasion. And we'll see how this plays out politically next year. The term of this coalition goes to October. Elections could come before that, but certainly by next October, there'll be elections, and we'll see if Netanyahu can survive one more time.
Well, there's lots of blame to go around on that one. It was actually during the Obama administration that Qatar was urged to house the leadership of Hamas, and the reason was in order to negotiate with them. If they were in Tehran, they wouldn't be able to negotiate. If they're there in Qatar, they could. And then it seems like there was, I don't know if complicity is the right word, but the Israeli government seemed to go along with that and actually use it as some kind of opposition to the Palestinian Authority. Do you think there's going to be a collapse of the Israeli government because of it? Are we looking at yet another election in Israel?
Well, I think we're definitely going to see another election, as I said, at least by October when the term runs out. Whether or not it comes before that remains to be seen. A lot of complicated issues involved, not only October 7th. One other big issue here in Israel, Gordon, is about the Haredi, the ultra-Orthodox. Will they be allowed? Will they have to serve in the government? Many of the ultra-Orthodox are refusing. Many other Israelis say they really need to. That's a big contentious issue. That could lead to a collapse of the government before next October, but we'll see how this unfolds. And these negotiations are critical to see what happens next.
Well, certainly lots to pray for. So, Chris, thanks for your insight and thanks for being with us. Back on Monday's show, I mentioned a prophecy from Jeremiah, and if we can get that, and it's about Elam. If I can see that slide up, there it is from Jeremiah. It's the last two verses of chapter 49, 38 and 39. I will set my throne in Elam and will destroy from there the king and the princes. But it shall come to pass in the latter days, I will bring back the captives. And that bring back the captives means bringing back people to worship God. Isn't that wonderful? Let's pray for great revival in Iran. Here's a stat you may not have heard. The fastest growing church in the world is in Iran, and it's all underground. They suffer from severe persecution, the threat of imprisonment. They have to disguise their church meetings and their communions. They try to pretend it's some kind of birthday party, and they always have a birthday cake ready in case they get the police knocking at their door. But let's pray. Let's believe God that these things can happen in our time, that the final ingathering of the Gentiles, the completion of the Great Commission can happen. If Iran came to the knowledge of God, what a wonderful thing. And overthrow that horrible, murderous cult that is their current government. That would be great. Let's pray for it. Let's believe for it.